And I think it's important to understand that this system, at the snap of a finger, could be nuclear. And this is the problem with the 2026 deployment in Germany. Those systems that they're talking about, I believe, knowing how the American political system works, that the intent is to deploy nuclear arms systems in Germany very close to 2026. You start out, you don't say nuclear when you start out talking about them in 2026, because in 2026, if you deploy somewhat similar systems, which if they're not nuclear, they are also constrained by kinetic energy, mass and velocity. So why would you do that? Well, you would do that because you were putting in place the framework for quickly deploying nuclear weapons very shortly thereafter. So this is a ploy by the United States. This is the typical bait and switch that the American political establishment has come up with over the last few decades. And the Russians know it. And I think the American public and the German public and the European public should know it. If the European public decides that it thinks it's a good thing for Western Europe to have these nuclear armed systems on their soil in 2026, so be it. They are the people who are the targets. But I think they ought to understand that they are going to be targets, and they're going to be nuclear targets, because the Russians are not going to stand for nuclear armed missiles of this kind being on German soil or elsewhere in Western Europe. They're going to target these things with nuclear weapons, and they're going to target them with a lot of weapons because they're hard to find. They're going to be mobile. They're going to be very hard to locate. And if you have any doubts about something being located somewhere, you're going to hit that location. You know that better than I do. You're a soldier. You're trying to stop this guy, this adversary, from doing as much damage to you as you can. And you're not going to hesitate to dump another, since you're already launching nuclear weapons, you're going to turn that whole place into a glass parking lot when you're finished. And that's what Germany's going to look like. If God help us, these missiles, these American missiles, are deployed in Germany in 2026, and something sets off an exchange, which could well happen because the warning times are now will be so low and so short. Germany, all of Germany is going to look like Dresden. All of Germany. Not Dresden, not just like Dresden looked like in World War II. All of Germany is going to look like Dresden, because they're going to be firestorms from those nuclear weapons, like that will make Dresden and Hiroshima look like a tea party. Yep. So this is something that needs to be thought about by the Western Europeans, who have not thought enough about their own security. I mean, I'm concerned about the security of the world as well as American security. I don't think these weapons are a good idea, because I think they create a flashpoint that's going to be very, very easy to set off for a global nuclear catastrophe. But if you're a Western European and you think that you're going to get off scot-free with these kinds of weapons, you really need to become informed. If you still think it's worth it, that's your choice. You're making that decision. But so far, the Europeans have lost. I mean, the Europeans have been much more hurt by American actions in this Ukrainian war than the Russians have. The Russian economy is not collapsing like Mr. Biden somehow believed it would. I don't understand. He must have made the decision to destroy this pipeline, this Nord Stream pipeline, without consulting a single, competent economist. Economists would have said, all of these sanctions that you're putting on are going to backfire. Europe is going to be in big trouble because they have a big trade with Russia and also with China, which they're also trying to cut off. It's going to have a devastating impact on the European economy. And worse yet, when you destroy Europe's extremely cheap energy base from Nord Stream, 2 to 3 times cheaper than what you're now getting, you're going to cause a collapse of the heavy industry in Europe. And that's what we're seeing. The GDP of Germany this year was minus 0.3% growth. The Russian economy was 4%. Minus 0.3% to 4%. Looks like the damage was done to Germany. And the German population ought to think about that. I don't understand what Olaf Scholz was thinking when Biden told him, because it's clear that Biden told him in a meeting that that's what he was going to do. He was going to destroy the Nord Stream pipeline. And Scholz was there when Biden made these incredible remarks that he later carried out in the form of this attack. And Seymour Hersh got the goods on him. And that's what happened here. So Europeans who are listening to this, you need to decide for yourself if you're going to make decisions that are in your own best interest. And if your ally is not concerned about getting you, pushing you into decisions that are not in your own best interest, your ally is not serving you well as an ally. There is no decision the United States should make in its own best interest, along with other allies, that should not also be consistent with the best interests of those allies. And we screwed our European allies in this decision. Joe Biden screwed the allies, and the political leadership in Europe today, which I think is going to be gone in a year because of election trends, better have a new leadership that starts reflecting the realities of what happened earlier and starts making decisions that will benefit Western Europe. I have family in Western Europe. I want to see Western Europe do well. So anyway.